Welcome to the National Gamekeepers Organisation YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing non-lead ammunition. Steel, bismuth and tungsten, what that means, what the current situation is and which one you can or cannot use in your gun. Gamekeepers are always on the lookout for new ways of working to help manage their land for the benefit of protected habitats, birds and wildlife and the wider environment. With that in mind, many shoots and many people within the shooting community have already made the transition away from lead shot, and the NGO is delighted to see those numbers continuing to grow. The NGO believe that game meat is a healthy meat option that should be more widely available to the public, and with that in mind, the move away from lead shot will hopefully open new markets. It's become clear over the last few years that buyers at supermarkets would prefer to buy lead-free game. And so moving to lead-free game will help support the game meat market, which is why it's important that we get behind this for a sustainable future for shooting. Since the announcement of a transition, we've seen mass development from the cartridge manufacturers as well as gun manufacturers, preparing ourselves as a community for the future of this change. And it's important that we as shooters support them by testing new products and actually adopting some of these new things in the field. So today, without further ado, let's start with cartridges and a discussion of what is currently available and what you can and can't put in your guns. The main focus of this will be steel shot. It's the closest in price to lead and the most widely available and accessible. There are two main types to consider. You have standard performance steel and high performance steel, HP steel as most people call it. The key differences between these are pressure and shot size. Standard steel must be below a shot size 4 and HP steel will be above shot size 3. There's a pressure differential as well. You will need a gun proofed up to 1320 bar, we'll look at that in a second, for this. And standard steel cartridges you can use in any nitro-proofed gun, with some caveats. Here we have an example of standard performance steel and high performance steel. You'll notice that the packet is actually marked with the CIP Fleur-de-Lis mark, which is the proof mark you'll see on guns which will be able to take this ammunition. And it's important that you do not put this ammunition into guns without this proof mark. The standard performance steel has no marking because it can be put into any nitro-proofed gun with the correct choking. You'll see that this is FE4 3.25mm and FE3 3.6mm. 3.25mm is the cutoff for standard performance steel. The reason for this shot size cutoff is because every metal material reacts differently under pressure. Steel, being much harder than lead, is less malleable when it's put through constrictions. In a shotgun tube, you have various constriction points. From the chamber into the barrel is called the forcing cone, that is constriction 1. And from the chamber out of the end of the gun is the choke, that's constriction 2. Under constriction, big balls are more likely to interlock and create higher pressure. So that's why that cutoff is in place. It's important that we check our barrels to see what the chokes are, because when it comes to standard steel, you can put it in any nitro-proofed gun less than half choke. And that choking is important as well. There's been tests in the past with thin-walled guns with, I think it was up to 3/4 choke, and they ran 1,000 24-gram steel cartridges through it without any damage. That's not to say that's the correct thing to do, however, because at the end of the day, if you damage your gun, you are the one liable for it. Also, worth bearing in mind that more choke isn't necessarily good. The original choke constrictions were based around lead shot. All tests have proven that steel shot responds to choke very differently. Because of the nature of steel, it doesn't disperse so much out of the choke, so actually less choke is important. And a few of my friends, when moving over to steel, have had problems with it whilst being over-choked. And once they've opened those chokes up, they've noticed better kills, better breaks on clays. So it's about changing your mindset. If you have a fixed choke gun, over half choke, you will need to have that choke relieved realistically to avoid any potential damage. That can be done by any number of gunsmiths, or if you want it multi-choked, you can send it to T-chokes. However, bear in mind that after having that done, you will need to have it reproofed for resale, which is important because it's a legal requirement. Just bear in mind that going to the proof house with some guns is a one-way trip. If it fails or passes, it is a fail or pass system. Some older guns may need to be shot with bismuth ongoing, which is a much softer metal than steel, much closer to lead. I have stated it, but I'm going to double down on this point, that condition is important. The condition of your gun, being the wall thickness, the bore diameter, how loose it is, the actual action design, There are a lot of guns out there that are nitro proof that are probably not recommended for steel, just given the quality of the gun or the lightweight construction of the barrels. The best thing to do is to pop to your local gunsmith, have it checked over and get their recommendation. If you've got a gun with thin barrels, just be aware that that's not going to be too appropriate for steel potentially. Have it checked out by a gunsmith and take their recommendation on it. A lot of it is based on the analogy of a classic car. You don't have a classic car and put 30,000 miles on it a year. A lot of these older guns won't be out of commission, but if you have an older gun with thinner barrels, you're probably going to have to use bismuth instead. For high performance steel, you're going to need a high performance steel gun, and it's quite simple to check that. I've got two barrels here so we can compare them side by side. One is HP steel proofed and the other is just nitro proofed. Come in, let's have a look. Depending on where a gun is built, it will have slightly different proof marks, but it is a requirement in England to have a gun proofed before sale. And so there will be a set of marks on it that will tell you enough information about this gun to allow you to know whether to put steel through it or not. This is from a Browning 525. You have 2023, year of manufacture, CIP with the fleur-de-lis. That indicates that this gun is steel shot proofed. 18.7 is the internal bore size. You'll notice that larger bore sizes are more appropriate for steel shot. A lot of that is down to steel shot proof and the way that steel shot performs under pressure. Here you have another CIP mark on the monoblock. Behind that you have year of manufacture, JP for being manufactured in Japan, and the serial number. Behind that, barrel length and Invector Plus, which is the choke system on this gun. You'll notice on the chokes in this gun will actually be written whether they are for steel shot or not. And finally, if you flip it over, on the top here you have 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch and 3 inch. That is the chamber size. You'll see this in both millimeters and inches, imperial and metric. Just be aware, do not go over this recommended size with steel shot. You will have big problems. Not that you should be putting oversized cartridges in your chambers with lead shots, but just imagine the pressures are so much higher with steel. Best case scenario, you could bulge at the front here, in front of your chamber, which writes your barrel off. Worst case scenario is your barrel actually gives way, which could be really, really damaging to your hands, your face, or your life. Remember that this is an ever-changing market. A lot of new testing is being done every year, and a lot of new products are coming to the market every year. And what we are understanding, or our understanding of steel shot, is improving every year. Our improvements of how to get the most out of it under CIP laws. What is kind of interesting is one of the current recommendations is that you match the cartridge size to your chamber size exactly. So in a 3-inch gun, you'll see optimum performance from a 3-inch cartridge. In a 2 3/4 inch 70mm gun, a 70mm cartridge will give you optimum performance. And nowadays there are 65mm cartridges for 2.5mm or 2.5-inch 65mm chambers. So you can perform pretty well. That's what's recommended. The real important thing is do not go over your chamber size. That's bad. This barrel is from a gun that is not steel shot proofed and is a fixed choke. And we're going to show you this just so that you can understand what is missing. If we look along the side of the tubes here and here, you'll see that there is no CIP stamp, no wording saying steel shot that you can see on a lot of guns. And well, all you see is this 18.4 and proof stamps indicating it has been through proofed. 18.4 is a tighter bore size than the 18.7 we saw earlier. Moving down to the bottom of the gun, we'll see some more proof marks here. 2 3/4, that is your chamber size. So you should not put 3-inch shells in this gun, it will not take them. Moving up, we have nitro proof, which means it is just nitro proofed. That is no bad thing. That means you can put standard steel through this gun until you move it down here and you look at these markings. It's 28-inch. These are choke markings from Maruku, one indicating a quarter choke and one indicating a 3/4 choke. Over the years over on the TGS channel, I have done a lot of testing with Nick Horton and a few others on steel shot and what is good about it and what is not, and also what guns will take. We've put some very inappropriate loads through guns, and what I've learned is that putting one shot of standard steel through this top barrel may do absolutely nothing to that choke. However, it could also add a little ring bulge, which puts this gun out of action until that is fixed, which is just not so good. The ideal situation here would be to have that relieved or to run an alternative like bismuth or tungsten through that choke. But as we've covered before, the reality is 2/4 chokes in here would perform better with steel shot. It's going to give you better patterns and give you the best possible outcome the cartridge can give you. Over-choking with steel is bad. Remember that guns from different countries will have different proof marks, but the overriding themes you're looking for is CIP stamp, chamber size. Those are the important things. Once you know those, you can go and buy cartridges more effectively. However, just taking your gun into your local gun shop, having it inspected, and double checking and clarifying these things with a professional are good ideas. When it comes to cartridge selection, there is a lot of new products on the market when it comes to steel shot, and companies are developing year on year, both in their plastic wad offerings and with biodegradable wads, which are much more preferable for game shooting. The important thing to remember is that steel is much lighter than lead. So if you got two number 6 shot balls from each, that denser lead would be heavier and more ballistically efficient. That being said, what you need to do is increase the ball size you go for, or the shot size that you go for when you're buying steel shot. Generally speaking, move up 2 shot sizes and you will not be unhappy. If you use a 6 in lead, use a 4 in steel. If you use a 5 in lead, use a 3 in steel. One final reminder before we move off of steel shot and onto bismuth, make sure that you use the right cartridge for your chamber size. Do not use more than half choke in a standard steel proof gun, and do not use more than a quarter choke in a HP steel proof gun. As with any new cartridge, go out and pattern test it and then go and test it in the field. You won't be disappointed with the results of a more open choke. The other 2 lead shot alternatives that are in the mainstream are bismuth and tungsten. New products are coming to the market, but they're going to be a little while till they're commercially available. Bismuth is less dense than lead, so you will need to increase 1 shot size instead of 2 that you would for steel. But it is as soft as lead. Being as soft as lead means you can put it through any choke, providing you put it in the right chamber size in a nitro-proof gun, you'll be able to run those things anywhere. It's a very effective cartridge alternative to lead. However, it does come with a bit of a heftier price tag. If you're not using a lot of cartridges or have a very special gun that you wouldn't want to risk putting the wrong steel through, bismuth is a fantastic alternative. Tungsten is the final mainstream alternative. It comes in many shapes and forms, but generally speaking, it is significantly denser than lead, meaning you can reduce shot size. Instead of using a size 6, you may use a size 7. Being much denser, you get more pellets to fit in that cartridge, which is an interesting thing. So you'll find much bigger loads available in a 17mm cartridge and even bigger loads available in a 3-inch cartridge. It does come with a massive price tag, but for many people, the performance of that, certainly when it comes to lead shot alternatives for fox shooting with a shotgun, is worth every penny. As our understanding of non-lead alternative shot increases, so the information will continue to come to the market. If you have any further questions, please bang them down in the comments below and we will endeavor to answer them. One of the interesting things is that a lot of people at the start of this changeover said English guns would be dead, and actually the alternative seems to be true. Obviously, there's a lot of older guns that are not appropriate for steel without some modification, and that's going to be down to you whether you'd like to modify those guns or whether you just want to use bismuth. As always, before taking any risks, please go to your local gun shop, have your guns checked out, and always check what it says on the box to see whether you're buying HP steel or standard performance. Take care, guys. Thank you for support. I'll see you next time.